Joining us now is Coulter, best-selling author of, among many other New York Times bestsellers, Resistance is Futile. And you were tweeting out a lot of great stuff this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. This is just unbelievable, this latest allegation, and I knew they would do it. You knew they would do it. There are probably only a handful of female classmates of Brett Kavanaugh's from Yale, both college and law school, who were not at a pussy hat march against Trump. I'm actually surprised, having read the full New Yorker story and the New York Times, really not being very impressed with that story. I'm really surprised they couldn't get more lefty women to just lie and say, oh, yeah, I knew all about it all the time. Again, absolutely no witnesses. The woman wasn't sure herself. When the New York Times called her, according to the New York Times account, she couldn't remember who it was. She said, I need a week to call my classmates and access my memory.
Right.
This is 30 years later. After accessing her memory, although none of her classmates backed her up on it, she couldn't find anybody to corroborate. Having accessed her memory, she suddenly remembered that, yes, it was Kavanaugh's penis, which, among other times, it would have been...
This is the same thing as with Ford. I mean, the New York Times ran a story last week about it. She called her best friend from the sorority at UNC and said, did I ever tell you this story? And this was a woman who was at her wedding. So, I mean, it's not like they lost contact with each other after they graduated college. And the woman said, no, you never told me anything like this. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So
and
it's the same story. It's the same MO for both women.
But not only that, absolutely the same MO, no evidence, no corroborating witnesses, recovered memories. And again, I'm kind of surprised that the pussy hat wearing brigade didn't just, get together, conspire to create some lie about Kavanaugh. They're so obsessed with abortion. It really is going to be a great thing when Roe v. Wade is finally overturned, just to show these idiots it's really not going to make that much of a difference. I promise you, in the state of New York and the state of Massachusetts, the state of New Jersey, abortion will always be legal. The most heinous, disgusting abortions. Don't worry, liberal pussy hat wearing women. There'll probably be a few states that will mostly ban it. And by and large, and then probably half the states will have a few restrictions like spousal notification, parental notification for minors, things like that. It's not as if abortion is going to be illegal when their precious Roe is overturned. I think part of what, before I'd even read the full New Yorker article, and actually before the New York Times, it was interesting. They didn't even have their own story on the New Yorker article. They had a story on the first accuser, and just that she's going to be testifying this Thursday. And shockingly, for the New York Times in the Trump era, now that they've given up being an objective newspaper, 17 paragraphs in, they put in this thing, Yep, we talked to her, but couldn't find a single corroborating witness, so we didn't go with it.
Yeah, but interestingly, Ann, though, and the New Yorker printed practically the exact same sentence saying we couldn't find any confirmation either, but we decided to go with the story. Yeah,
quite different than the way allegations against E.G. Harvey Weinstein were treated. I can't imagine this story with that little backup being printed against anyone other than a conservative nominee to the Supreme Court. And finally, we haven't even talked about the outrageousness of the timing here. Any normal person who is not so utterly committed to preserving, Roe v. Wade, we have to do anything. Any normal person would say, give me a break. Trump nominated Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court 3 months ago. Kavanaugh has already gone through major confirmation hearings to get on the D.C. Circuit. D.C. Circuit is generally considered a feeder court to the Supreme Court. They wouldn't even allow Miguel Estrada onto the D.C. Circuit. They were so worried about him being elevated to the Supreme Court. And most importantly, which I pointed out right away on Twitter, everybody knew, certainly everybody in Washington, and I promise you every liberal on Clinton's side, knew that Brett Kavanaugh was one of the primary lawyers on the Ken Starr investigation of Bill Clinton. What was Bill Clinton impeached for? Whipping it out in front of underlings as president, as governor, and so on. You think Larry Flint and James Carville weren't searching all over? Remember, there was a book, I Got It Killed, by going on Geraldo and producing a letter from a detective showing that he was looking into the private lives of people like me. There was a book commissioned by Harvey Weinstein to expose the private lives of all of Ken Starr's investigator, plus the elves, me and a few other attorneys. We were basically all accused of, it was called Insane Clown Posse by John Connolly. I wrote about it a few months ago when the Harvey Weinstein stuff came out. Ironic. He was trying to destroy all of us. But basically everybody on Starr's staff and the elves were accused of being gay, except to me. I was saved by being accused of having an affair with Geraldo.
Well, we had Ken Starr on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, I said, did Brett Kavanaugh recommend, was he in favor of indicting Hillary? And he said, no comment, which I knew how to interpret
the idea
that.
If these things had happened, that would not have come out for your younger listeners who did not live through the Clinton impeachment. That was a war like it will be when Trump, please God, let it be Trump, the president then, is picking a replacement for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It was a total war where they were looking into the personal backgrounds of anyone going against Clinton. It was outrageous, the kind of digging they were doing. And Brett Kavanaugh was one of Starr's primary lawyers on the impeachment case for the exact same thing that Kavanaugh is being falsely accused of here.
Did you hear Lindsey Graham yesterday? He, I'm not a big fan of his, but he made a really interesting point on one of the talk shows. He said, when I voted to confirm Kagan and Sotomayor, I was a wise bipartisan statesman. Now I'm going to vote for Kavanaugh, and I'm just a sleazy old white man.
Yeah, I will admit I intensely dislike Lindsey Graham, but he was very good yesterday. And I just hope the unfairness, the outrageousness of this, I really think the Republicans should have responded and said, this is unbelievable. You will stoop to anything. We're voting today. We don't even want to hear from Ford. We see now you've exposed what the original accuser was up to. Maybe we could have given you the benefit of the doubt before this, but now we see you are just going to bring forward a series of pussy hat wearing women with recovered memories of things that happened long ago. This sheds new light on the original accuser, and they really should vote today. But as usual, it all comes down to what the women of the Senate are going to do. Senator Murkowski, right. Collins, Flake, and Sass.
Hey, don't forget Corker. Don't forget Lil Bob, as Trump calls him.
But I would think this would buck them up, at least, the actual biological women.
Well, doesn't it? I mean, don't you get the feeling? I mean, I don't think McConnell would keep going out like he did Friday and again this afternoon if he didn't think that he had all of his ducks in a row.
I hope that's right. I hope they understand that. They keep talking about optics. When they say optics, they mean, how is ABC, NBC, CBS going to respond to this? No, you better think about the optics with your voters, Republicans. And if they don't confirm Kavanaugh and confirm him fast, it may be a bloodbath anyway in the absence of a wall. But there is really no reason to vote Republican if they don't confirm Kavanaugh. If they drop this ball, they are utterly useless.
One thing about the Democrats, though, and I mean, they do play hardball and by any means necessary, and, the ends justify the means, et cetera, but they do have a tendency to overplay their hand, i.e.
Yes,
Michael Avenatti stepping forward, the creepy porn lawyer. I mean, nothing says excess like allegations from the creepy porn lawyer.
Yes. It reminds me of the Access Hollywood tape, Chapter 2 of my book, Resistance is Futile. I mean, that should have been damaging to Trump. The reason it wasn't was because of the titanic overreaction of the left. The same people who were pushing filth on us in Hollywood, TV, in college curricula, coming forward and acting like fainting Victorian virgins, and they can't just leave it at, oh, this is so sophomoric, aren't you embarrassed to have this man as your president? No, they have to leap immediately to, he's admitting to a sexual assault.
I know.
I think the public reacted. Okay, next.
And when are the hearings on Senator Menendez and Congressman Ellison going to begin?
Yeah, you're right. They have so much energy, these liberals. So much planning. I kind of admire them. They never give up.
Yeah, and nobody ever mentions that. The only place that Ellison gets mentioned is in the conservative media. What little there is of it, no. Yeah. There are no Democrats going after the guy. I mean,
the stunning hypocrisy. You have to sit back and admire them sometimes. The sneaky little devils.
Yeah, I know. Do you think she's going to show up?
Ramirez or Ford?
Well, I don't think Ramirez is.
Which of the two lying accusers?
I think Ramirez is. She was the. I always keep saying, Ann, every week they have a new Great White Hope. Like the person who was the fighter who was supposed to beat Johnson. Last week it was Ford, and this week's Great White Hope is Ramirez. But I don't think she's going to get a chance to go into the ring. I think the Republicans have finally had it with this stuff. But do you think Ford is going to show up? Because she's got the invitation. They're planning to have it 10 o'clock.
Question. I tend to think not. My impression of this for the last week has been, and this is very charitable to her, by the way, that she inadvertently. People are always telling me that they remember me doing something in college, law school, not unflattering, often flattering, but it just wasn't me. People's memories, they often insert a public figure's face into what their memories are telling them. But I think Kavanaugh came back so strong against the Ford's claims because he could very well have said, yeah, I was 17, all I did was grope her, I was drunk, I'm a different man now. This was 36 years ago. He could have said that, but he didn't. And that suggests to me that threw her back on her heels, and she suddenly realized, oh, crap, I named the wrong guy. And I think she's been sitting there saying, I'm not going to testify, I've got to take this back, I made a horrible mistake, while her lawyers and handlers are saying, just shut up, we'll handle it from here.
Right. Well, she's the only one who's not under oath. The other four are now under oath, and she's not. That's an interesting thing. I mean, not that I think that she's under any kind of jeopardy of going to prison or anything, but that is still something that she's got to consider if she now knows it's a case of mistaken identity,
I suspect that is the case, and her lawyers came up with this way to drag it out so that they could produce some other false accuser, as I suspected was going to happen all along. And the only thing that surprises me is that they couldn't get more women to lie and claim to be aware of it.
Officer Mark says, can Michael Avenatti be charged with multiple counts of harassing a moving ambulance?
Hey, you be careful. He's going to be the Democrats' nominee.
I know. He has all the qualifications, all of them,
yeah.
Every last one. All right, Ann Coulter, author of Resistance is Futile, available at fine bookstores and at Amazon, Amazon.com. Thanks for being with us. Talk to you next week, Ann.
Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm